All right, 30 videos, 30 days, no edits, no starts, no stops. Well, gotta have a start, right? No stops, no do-overs. Just hit record, say what you gotta say, and post it. Again, it's been a great experience. It's really taught me a lot about myself and how I get my message across when I'm coaching, when I'm talking to people, just in normal conversations. It's pretty interesting. It's been a good self-study. I was thinking today, when I dry fire, I like to dry fire with a lot of different weapons. So I dry fire with a variety of pistols. I rarely dry fire unless it's something new. Like I'm trying to get acclimated to a new pistol or a new rifle or whatever. I'm not going to dry fire the same thing every day. So I'm probably not going to dry fire Glock and then Glock and then Glock. I'm most likely going to shoot maybe some sort of traditional double action like this SIG 226 or some sort of striker fire, whether it's an M&P or a Glock or a Walther. And then there will be other days where I'll play around with 1911s and 2011s, and then shotguns, lever action rifles, bolt guns, like the scout rifle type concept, ARs, 1022s, all kinds of stuff. I just think for me, it keeps me interested. It keeps me sharp, adaptable. It causes me to have to understand the nuances of the different platforms, so to speak. I understand that's a misuse of that word, but at this point, that's how people refer to different weapon systems. And it keeps me interested. You know, it keeps my interest fired up and keeps me into it. Now, if we're talking about somebody who has to carry for a living, like your security guy, your armed security on like an armored truck or something like that, a courier, or you're a police officer or a military guy, then yeah, you probably should just do a lot of work on your your duty weapon, what you're carrying every day. Whether it's a pistol, if you're in the military, it's probably a 320. If you're a cop, it's probably a Glock. Then that's probably, or an M&P, that's probably what you should be devoting a lot of time to. And you should know that thing like the back of your hand. You should have one that you keep for duty that you don't touch. Like you shoot a couple thousand rounds through it, pressure test it, make sure it's good. Make sure it's point of aim, point of impact with your assigned duty ammo. And then put that thing in the holster and leave it. And then get a identical training gun that you can dry fire every day, that you can take to the range and run drills. And you can put 10, 15, 20,000 rounds through in a year and then rebuild it. And if it breaks during training, it's not a big deal. But you don't want to have that kind of in the back of your head that I just burned through 6,000 rounds in this pistol over the last month or two, and now it's sitting in my holster for work. There's a lot of wear and tear. I don't know. There's arguments back and forth, right? Like I have a pilot friend that used to say, you can check all the gauges, test everything, but that doesn't mean it'll turn on the next time you need it to turn on. So, but in the world of odds are that the more you use something, the more likely it will break. So I want to gamble towards the other side of that. I want my duty gun to be as pristine as possible, as ready to go as possible, little wear and tear as possible. So today I'm playing around with a 226. Now this is pretty cool. I don't know if you guys can see this without it blurring out, but this is a West German 226 in really good condition relatively. It's got some holster wear because like all my guns, a little wear on the mag well from reloading and shooting it, but I like to run it. The sights on here, I want to say, man, I think this is a True Glow front sight and an Ameriglow rear sight. I'm not 100% on that. I just like that combination when shooting this pistol. The sights that were on it were the tritium that came with it, and they were dead. So I replaced it with these, and man, like any duty rated pistol out there, it's going to be more accurate than me. Just no two ways about it, man. I'm doing my best, but from a rest, just letting it sit there and just press off the round. This thing is incredibly accurate, much more accurate than my skill set would support. But Also, that gives me a little leeway, right? So now one of the things that comes up when dry firing with these pistols, you know, training with them and doing the work, is that you have the two different trigger pulls. So people will say, hey, look, you know, with the Glock, it's always the same trigger pull. With the 1911, always the same trigger pull. With any striker fire gun or single action pistol, whether it's a 1911, 2011, or a Browning, any of those, even some of the CZs, it's always going to be the same consistent trigger pull. But when you use a double action, traditional double action, so you're going to have the long initial trigger pull, right? And then you come off of that, and then you have the shorter trigger pull. And so, you know, and typically the people who are worried about that are the people who are like, how do I ride the reset? So the reset, we all are probably familiar with that. The reset is I press the trigger, slide cycles, and then I let it out just enough to catch the reset and then go again. Well, early on in my shooting career, I've talked about D.R. Middlebrooks a couple times. I got to train with him, and he is a flip and press. So he is, get your finger off the trigger, out of the way, press the trigger, flip your finger forward, and press again. Flip, press. So regardless of what's happening with the trigger is just a speed bump in between my finger, in between the front of the trigger guard and the back of the trigger guard. So from here to here, my finger is traveling straight through. And this is just a speed bump in my travel from here to here. Now, I get it. There is a time and place to get very precise. There's a time and place to pull up to the wall, feel the wall, and then break the shot by continuing to add pressure, 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 and the shot breaks. Same with the double action. There's a time and place to get on that, press up to the wall, press, 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 feel the wall. Now right there is the wall. It is stacked, and then press through and it breaks. There's a time and place to know your trigger to that degree. And there's a time and place where you're gonna need to make that shot where it's a precise shot where you press, 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 and then it breaks, right? However, I'm getting off of that trigger as quickly as possible because I want to let that thing work. Now, so training with DR quickly got me out of that reset the trigger thing. So I stopped resetting triggers and I just started running the gun. I just started running that trigger and getting after it and just getting my finger out of the way, getting out of the way of the mechanical action of the pistol, or of the trigger rather, because the trigger wants to return. That's why it has a return spring, right? And just let that thing go. And I quickly found, after adopting that method of driving a trigger, that it didn't matter any longer if the gun was a double action, single action, striker fired, which is kind of single action, whether it was a shotgun, a AR variant, a bolt gun, a hunting rifle, an MP5, you know, full auto, 3-round burst, all that good stuff. It just didn't matter because whatever I got on, I had developed that trigger and isolated that portion of my finger right there to go flat across the trigger face and press straight back without disturbing the sights. And it took away all those debates. So I never got into those arguments with people about you got to ride the reset because, you know, like, also the other thing that happens when you start flipping and pressing is you don't have that trigger freeze where you're trying to work the trigger and the trigger's dead because you didn't let it hit the reset before trying to drive it again. That takes away that issue as well. And at the same time that I was going out to see DR and train with him, a couple of my teammates were going through the Rogers School and we were comparing notes when we got back, and those guys all said the same thing. Bill Rogers was talking about flip and press, and that eliminates the double to single action transition, whether you're driving a 1911 or a Glock or whatever. It's all the same because you just flip and press. Another person that talks about this is Rob Latham, Brian Enos. A lot of these guys talk about just treating that trigger as a speed bump in between the front of the trigger guard and the rear of the trigger guard, and you just press it straight back and get out of the way as soon as possible. So hopefully that helps you guys a little bit. If you don't already do that, give it a shot, man. Try it out. See what you think. It's one of those things where we are on a continual journey of learning. We are trying to get 1% better every day. Sometimes in some aspects of training, I might get 5, 10, 15% better each day because I am at the beginning and the bottom. And so those big leaps are easy. But towards the end, towards where I'm getting close to my capacity or my potential rather, that's when little things like, well, maybe there's a different way to drive the trigger. Maybe there's a different way to mount the pistol or mount the shotgun or the rifle. Maybe there's a little tweak I can make here and there. There's something I can do differently with my shoulders that will make me, that will cause me to see some improvements, that will give me that 1% or maybe 0.8%, but I'll take it. Because when we're talking about something that potentially is life-saving, that might keep me from, well, let's just speak plainly, right? It might keep me alive. Would I take that 0.8% improvement? You betcha. I will take 0.4% improvement each day because over time that adds up to quite a bit of improvement. So try it out, guys. Again, it's just a different way to drive the trigger, and just a different way to manipulate the pistol and all that good stuff. Also, you see me do this a lot. This is the Super Dave Harrington warm-up drill that you do before you go into dry fire. And you do it off both hands. You learn how to manipulate the pistol. This one's tough because all the controls are way back on the back of this thing. But you just work your way through the entire firing cycle of the pistol without the loud bang. So I would drive out, get a trigger press, come back in, change hands. So that also gives me the opportunity to practice exchanging hands, trading the pistol from right hand to left hand. I'm gonna press the trigger, right hand only, bring it back, exchange hands again, lock the slide back, drop the mag out. So I get a chance to practice reloading, keeping the thing topped off. How do I manipulate the trigger? Left hand only, get my grip back on the gun, drive it out, press the trigger, make my hit, call the shot, come back in. Now it's right hand only, come out, make my hit. It's a good little warm-up exercise that takes you through the firing, which doesn't happen, hopefully better not happen during dry fire, but the unlocking, extracting, ejecting, right? You drop a mag out, you feed a new mag in, now you send the slide forward, now it's loading, locking, and then firing again. So it's a pretty cool little drill. Also, when you do that drill to warm up for dry fire, it acquaints you with or reacquaints you with all the functions of the pistol, but also if it's your carry gun, you quickly realize where the sharp edges are real quick. And also it gets you an opportunity when you start changing from hand to hand, it gets you an opportunity to practice that. Like, how do I pick this pistol up with my left hand if I had to and drive this thing, manipulate all the controls. You also quickly see the advantages or disadvantages to certain pistols. You know, H&Ks are truly ambidextrous because they have the paddle right here on the trigger guard, and so you can get that from either side. They also have the slide release or slide lock on either side, so you can manipulate the whole thing. It just doesn't matter. It's mirrored. M&Ps come close. The Gen 5 Glocks, they at least have, like the M&Ps, they have the slide release on both sides of the slide. So although the mag release stays on one side, you can still let the slide go with your left thumb if you had to. So pretty cool stuff that comes up when you do just a simple drill, but you do it mindfully and you do it with everything, you do it enough, it starts to, in the words of Super Dave, reveal some truth to you. All right, guys, hope you dig it. Give it a shot. Let me know what you think. See you on the next one.